Welcome back to another episode of the Gandork Builds. I am Nick, aka the Gandork, and I'm back again this week to build yet another deck featuring a set 2 leader. Last week we built the Hunter deck. God, if I remember right, it was the Hunter deck. Haven't had a chance to play it because I missed my weekly this last week, but I'm looking forward to play that. I don't know, an upcoming weekly. But nevertheless, we persevere, and we're going to move on to a new deck this week. A deck that's actually getting, I think, some low-level hype. Like, people are starting to, notice this deck and play it, and it's getting some results in some events, though haven't seen it make a big splash yet, and that is a Gar Cunning deck. Gar Saxon, I think, is a little bit slept on as a leader in the new set. His ability is very good. It's just a blanket, ongoing, give all your upgraded units that +1 power. It's just a powerful effect. You just need to find ways to turn it on, usually experience tokens or shield tokens. Some upgrades, as we'll see. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So we got our good old trusty swudb.com deck builder. Shout out to Nerd Parker for his awesome site. And we're going to start building a Gar Saxon deck. Just for your reference, if you don't know, like you can see on Gar Saxon's leader side, he just has a constant ability of each friendly upgraded unit gets +1 power, +0 HP. So we're going to be building a deck that wants to take advantage of upgrades. Key, at least in blue cunning, vigilance cunning villain, we're going to be looking at shielded units because there's a lot of shielded units to choose from. And then we'll probably be looking at a few ways to get XP and then a few upgrades. We're going to pair this with yellow. You could make an argument for Jeddah City in this deck because it's really attrition heavy. But I think I'm going to go with a yellow base for now. So let's just throw the Administrator's Tower in here and let's get going. Okay, so the first thing I'm thinking of when I think of this deck is I want shielded units, like units with the shielded keyword. They come in with the shield, they get that +1 power, and in yellow villain, even blue villain, there's a lot to choose from. So my approach here is going to be throwing all those in first because we definitely want those. So we're talking about Crafty Smuggler. Let's get that in here. We're talking about Dr. Evazan, even with his drawback. He comes with the shield, so he's big. Let's get that in here. We're talking about the Client at 3 costs. Where is he? He's down with the Client alphabetically. We're talking about the 7th Fleet Defender. Has shielded. That'll probably be the end of the built-in shieldeds that we have, but that's a pretty good selection. Almost forgot a really good one. Super Commando Squad, which is thematically fits with our boy Gar here. It's down at 5 costs. Let's get the Super Commando Squad. What other things am I thinking? We'll probably be running Dooku as a top of the curve answer that comes in. Maybe we don't run 3 copies, but seems pretty decent to run in here. Next, I would think about things that give experience. There's not a ton of choices here, but I think there's an under the radar one that people haven't really played, kind of look over, see the drawback, don't want to play it, but it actually works. It's going to work really well in this deck, and that is Val. Let's talk about Val for a minute. So Val she's a very interesting unit, and I think Tyler in one of his tweets talked about how they designed Val, but no, she's very interesting because she has both a bounty that's a drawback that's deal 3 damage to a unit, and she has a when defeated ability of give 2 experience tokens to a friendly unit. Now the thing that makes this interesting is that the order of these abilities, the order that they resolve in, will depend on who the active turn player is, whose turn it is. So if it's my turn and I attack Val into a unit and she is defeated, I could choose to resolve the 2 experience first on a unit and then let my opponent do 3 damage, or do it vice versa, like whatever is more beneficial to me. Like if I want to see what unit they kill and then give experience to the other one, I could have them do the 3 damage first. If I just have one unit that would die to the 3 damage, but will live if it gets the experience, I'll do the experience first. But the reason she's cool in this deck is, one, those experiences come tagged with an extra +1 power, and two, all the shielded units basically can live through the 3 damage hit. So like they give you more opportunity even if your opponent kills her. Like if you have like a Crafty Smuggler or an Evazan or Client or Commando or Dooku out even, you can be like, all right, do 3 damage. All my guys have a shield. It's going to get eaten by a shield, and then I'll still give out the 2 experience, which will actually give me a total of +3 power, and we're good to go. So anyway, I think Val is a very interesting card in this deck, and she has another combo that I haven't talked about yet that catches a lot of people by surprise and makes this deck a lot of fun. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about it now. So we do need some other cards to round out the curve. So one good one at 3 costs that we're going to look in Yellow Villain that also likes getting buffed with things is the Lurking TIE Phantom. Everybody's favorite. Everybody knows about the Lurking TIE Phantom. Everybody loves the Lurking TIE Phantom. Lurking TIE Phantom in this deck is like, he doesn't natively have a way to get an upgrade. But he could combo with, say, something like Snapshot Reflexes that we might have in here, and maybe some other thing. But let's talk about the Val combo first. This is one of the really fun combos of this deck. So let's say you lead out round 1, you play your Val. Round 2, you play your Lurking TIE Phantom, for 3 resources. Then you run Val into something, and Val is defeated. And your only other unit is Lurking TIE Phantom. Bounties are considered an opponent's ability. They are an enemy card effect because it is a card effect that is controlled always by your opponent. It is an enemy card effect. So that bounty for 3 damage to a unit does nothing to the Lurking TIE Phantom. So if Val dies and all you have is a Lurking TIE Phantom, you can give the Lurking TIE Phantom the 2 XP, and the 3 damage drawback does nothing. They can pick the Lurking TIE Phantom as a target, but the Lurking TIE Phantom's effects of, this unit can't be damaged by enemy card abilities, it does nothing to it. So that combo ends up, once you give 2 XP to the Lurking TIE Phantom, keep in mind you get that extra +3, so now your Lurking TIE Phantom is swinging for 7 damage. 2 plus 2 experience, plus the 1 from Gar makes 5, plus the 2 raid, 7 damage. Is going to make quick work of a lot of opponents, and there's not a lot of cards that can defeat it. Not a lot of units that can trade with it that early in the game with the 4 health. It's a very good combo. And then speaking of another way unit that gives upgrades that combos well with the Lurking TIE Phantom, we're going to look at a TIE Advanced. And like, people have seen this in the triple dark raid decks. So it's not, it's not a super crazy combo. And we're probably not even going to play the full slot of TIE Advanced. But TIE Advanced, as that curve through Lurking TIE Phantom, can just win games. And then additionally, TIE Advanced can hit the Super Commando Squad. It can hit the Client. It can hit our leader, because Gar is an Imperial Mandalorian official. It can hit the 7th Fleet Defender. So we've got a few targets that those XP can go on, and then just the bonus from Gar, like turning it on, is always great. So we've got a solid amount of units that give us a lot of play with Gar Saxon's ability, so that's really good. Next thing that we're going to look at is a few upgrades that would be good to play with Gar Saxon. First one we're going to talk about is our absolute favorite, and I have to click over to the out of aspect because it's not a blue or yellow card. It is the good old Hotshot DL44, which we've seen play in quite a few things. It featured heavily in my Gar Cunning deck that I posted a few weeks back that was really popular. But yeah, like, it's a smuggle in yellow. You pay 3, and in this deck with Gar's ability, instead of getting a +2, it is a full-on +3, like a surprise strike from your resources. The downside is it can't go on any of the space units, but on any of your ground units, it is pure gold. The other upgrade that we're going to look at with Gar that is just really nice to turn on his ability and gets upside with his ability is, I mentioned earlier, snapshot reflexes. So I've seen this get played off and on through set 1, but it hasn't really found a home. But I think this might be the home that you really want it in, because it's 1 cost, and it's a +1/+1 upgrade. But with Gar Saxon, it ends up being a +2 attack, +1 HP, and it lets you attack immediately. So we're getting this like cheaper surprise strike. Makes our unit tougher, comes out, we get to hit with it. And the other good thing about snapshot reflexes, it is not limited to non-vehicle. So you can snapshot reflex on your Lurking TIE Phantom or your 7th Fleet or your TIE Advanced, making it a little more versatile. And this is so cheap. Cheap for that kind of action compression and buff. And then the last upgrade that also featured heavily in my Kylo deck, that's smuggle, that I think you have to look at in any yellow villain, is the jetpack. Not even just yellow villain, I guess. It's just a yellow card. So we got our buddy, the good old jetpack. It's such a good card. That shield, like, to ensure that your unit, like, lives to swing with the upgrade, or just that shield that ends up being, the equivalent of taking out a unit for losing no card, no additional cards. And in this deck with Gar, it's a +3 power. It's even better than it was in, the Kylo decks that I was running in. Like, it is, yeah, there's nothing more to say. If you haven't played with Jetpack, play with Jetpack. Jetpack is an amazing card. All right, we're at 34 cards, and we've got a pretty strong shell of a deck here. Mostly what we'll want to be looking into now is we need some ways to fill out our curve, and we need some events to do things that we want to do. So let's look at just some really good cards for the costs. We don't quite have enough 2-drops, not where I'd like to be, as we only have 9. I'd like at least 11. So I would say we're probably looking at Greedo as be the next most useful card here. I mean, he's just 1 cost 3/1. It's efficient. We're playing, a good chunk of upgrades and events, so maybe his ability has a slightly higher chance of hitting off a non-unit. But he's just pure efficiency, so he's probably going to make the cut in here. Other stuff that we would look at. There's another unit that actually combos with Gar that's not, immediately obvious, but you're probably already thinking of it. And it's just a really good unit in set 2, and that is Lom Pike. Let's go add him in here. Where is he? So Lom Pike, he's just a very good card. So let's look at him for a sec. He is a 4-cost 4/6, which for overall stats, like, that's really, that's a solid. Like, you're not seeing a lot of 4-cost units bringing that 4/6 body. Like, I am happy to pay 4 on curve and play him on curve any game. Like, that is super solid. Additionally, throw in that he's smuggle, and his smuggle is only 1 cost more than his regular cost. So it's essentially like 1 resource to draw a card, save a card from your hand, and gives you that extra smuggle, agility there, or, gives you those extra options. So that's really great. And then his on-attack ability is a little bit, like, it mind bends people a little bit to understand, like, how to use it to some effect, to good effect. But in this deck, knowing that not only are you getting the shield, but you're also getting +1 power on your unit that you give the shield to, lets you do a lot of interesting things with Lom Pike. Let's say, like, in, a more straightforward deck, like, Lom Pike might use his ability on attack to, like, give a shield to a space unit, and then give a shield to himself to attack into a ground unit and wipe out the ground unit. And maybe he's just ignoring the space unit, for the time being. And that's kind of where he gets really interesting. Like, they might have some little, like, TIE fighter space chump, and I'll just keep giving it shields while Lom Pike is cleaning up the ground all by himself. And he's giving that +1 power every time he gives himself a shield to get to 5 attack, which is, for a 4-cost unit, it is bonkers. And then additionally, like, sometimes they don't have, like, the space unit that's, doing irrelevant stuff or being unopposed. This deck, I would say it's mid-range, but it has the ability to flip to, like, aggro and just chunk in a bunch of damage really, really quickly. So like one thing you can do at some point, like maybe they have ground units that aren't sentinels. Lompai can be like, I'll just sentinel your ground unit. I'll sentinel myself and I'll go to your base for 5. And like, we can just be at a stalemate where we can't trade each other on the ground, but I'm going to start turning damage into your base. Maybe I'm going to do some hot shots or some other tricks. And I think I can just beat you. Like, so he like kind of turns on a ground race, which makes him interesting. Except on your side, anything you give a shield to is getting +1 power. So like, if you give a shield to their guy, shield to Lom, hit their base this round, and they're like, oh, I don't want to like, I'll hit your base too. I don't want to like trade shields. And then you're like, next time I'll give your same guy another shield. I don't care. I'm going to give my other unit a shield, which is also +1 power. And we're all going to your base. Like, we're going to race, but I get to creep up, give him +1 power every round with my Long Pike. Anyway, Long Pike's really good with this deck, so we definitely want him in here. Let's see. Now our curve's looking pretty good. We've got 12 round 1 plays. We got 9 round 2 plays with Client lurking in 7th Fleet. We've got Lom at 4. We've got Tai Advanced at 4. That seems decent. We got the Super Commando Squad at 5. We got Tranus at 7, which is past our leader flip, which is at 6 resources. Though I think a lot of the times when Gar Saxon flips, I haven't even talked about his unit side. We talked about like why we're playing all these upgrades, but so he flips at 6. He's a 4/7. He comes with a really, he still gives you your each friendly unit gets +1/+0. Great. But the piece de resistance is that he gives all of your friendly upgraded units a when defeated ability that you can return an upgrade that was attached to this unit to its owner's hand. So a lot of times, like, you want to flip Gar Saxon and you want to smuggle a Hotshot Blaster, and then if that unit dies, you get to return the Hotshot Blaster to your hand, resource it, pop it out again next turn for another attack combo, or do a similar thing with Jetpack or snapshot reflexes. It's just really, yeah. So like a lot of the times on the round 6 turn, we're looking to play upgrades with him. Sadly, you can't bounce shield and experience token upgrades to your hand. They just get removed from the game. But if you're stashing those hot shots and jetpacks in your resource row, like the turn you flip him is a turn to start pulling those out and then comboing them back to your hand. If your opponent tries to kill your units and then just reloading. It's kind of how, like, this is a mid-range. You're mid-range until all of a sudden that starts happening, and then you flip to, I'm going to start beating your base down. All right, so anyway, I was talking about the curve. So, like, the 6th curve is a lot of times is going to be flip Gar into play, pop out upgrades that can get returned to your hand while he's out. And then 7's kind of the top of our curve with Count Dooku here. All right, we need some events. Anytime I build a yellow deck, I think Surprise Strike is one of the best cards in yellow for any deck. It especially if you're kind of like mid-range, beat down like this deck can be, but like even just turning something into removal. And we have a lot of shielded units that like sometimes they do stuff like they pop down, I don't know what to get. Something with 5 health, like a Kanan, and you're like, well, I'm going to make my, a client Surprise Strike up and trade a shield to get rid of their Kanan because I don't want their Kanan on the board healing or anything else that's a threat. Like, Surprise Strike plus shielded units is great, and then sometimes it's just beating into the face, getting that extra damage. It's a yellow staple. The other thing, another event that's a blue villain staple that we have to include, like it's too good not to include, is Power of the Dark Side. So let's go ahead and go find that at 3 costs. We're going to put Power of the Dark Side in here for sure. It's just super efficient. Like, our units in this deck can make trades almost anywhere we need to make trades. So we can get to a point where Power of the Dark Side can, get a lot of value as a 3 cost, taking out like whatever the last big unit they have left is. And it's, I don't know. There's no reason not to run Power of the Dark Side until we start getting token units next set, and then maybe it loses, some of its advantage. But for now, you're in blue villain, you're playing the whole handful of Power of the Dark Side. Other stuff, we're at 46 cards, so we don't have a ton of room left. I think I'd be looking at one thing I really like in this deck. that kind of acts as both an event for disruption and an upgrade is Asteroid Sanctuary. Um, Card that people have been playing off and on, but a lot of times get cuts in lists. But I think it has an extra bonus here because we have so many units that can get that shield. We're happy to give our Lurking TIE Phantom that shield and the extra attack and protect them if they do drop a space unit. It can exhaust any enemy unit. So, you know, the big leaders, if they're playing that, like you can just get them exhausted and out of the way. I don't know if we'll play 2 or 3 copies, but it's going to be something like that. What else? This is technically a unit, but I think it's too good in a lot of matches that we have to have it in the main and side in some counts, and that's Bazine. Like, if you're in Yellow Villain, you're going to have some Bazines. I don't know how much are going to end up in the main versus the side, but Bazine is really good. So she answers stuff like, you know, the funny thing is this deck kind of can play around a big, like, Overwhelming Barrage very well just because the shields, like, really screw with what Overwhelming Barrage can do. But, like, Bazine to grab something like Overwhelming Barrage, or if you get just a little bit later versus, like, a deck you know is running Super Laser Blast, or some, like, big protect. Like, I don't know. There's too many things that the Bazine, if you just know your match and know the right time to play her, she can win you games. And she can be a smuggle card too. So you can just stash her in your resource row until, you know, you're at 8 resource and be like, surprise, pitch your Super Laser Blast. We aren't playing that game. And then I'm going to win. What are some other things? I think, you know, other, like, make an opening is really good removal right now. I don't know if it ends up being main deck, but we'll probably look at, like, make an opening in here. Just like opposing TIE Phantom decks is one thing. Snoke's along those same lines. I think this deck could play, like, if you get in a longer game, like maybe it would have Snoke's in the side. He's just a really good card that I would consider. Let's see. Let me think. What are some other considerations? Maybe Vigilance. When you're in blue, you always got to kind of consider the Vigilance. Like if you get into the, you know, aggro matches, it could be really good. Devotion, just because of Gar Saxon's ability. Devotion being an upgrade, technically gives +2/+1 and restore 2. Like that could be really good in aggro matches. Another control card. Like we could play to the Snoke, but like just Change of Heart, I think fits our mid-range kind of like the switches to beatdown theme. Like if we do go against the, you know, the slower aggro deck, we could win off like Change of the Heart, your, you know, Avenger, and hit you with it. Play. That's a classic. Yeah, so now we're at 62. I think this is a pretty good selection of cards. We just kind of got to hone down like what's going to be sideboard, what's going to be main. I don't think the Devotions ever be main. I think those come in for aggro matches. Same with Change of Heart comes in for control matches. Vigilance. Vigilance is in a weird spot in this deck. It does fit the 6 slot. Like I could see it coming in for aggro, but this deck with all the shielded units can kind of control aggro fairly well in a lot of ways too. So I don't know if it'll end up being needed. Same with make an opening. It's kind of for certain matchups. Let's cut that out. And Snoke's, maybe I'd run a one of main, like one side, but Snoke's probably more of a mid-range on mid-range play, which makes him weird because like control probably doesn't care, and aggro you probably should have one before Snoke has to hit the board. You know, we probably don't run the full clutch of Bazine's main. There, I have a 50 card main, and this doesn't look too bad. 2 asteroids, 3 surprise, 3 power. Yeah, I like this. And we have a 12 card side. So we're looking pretty good main. I like this main. Let's look at the side. We'd have to cut a couple cards. So let me think about like what we would end up siding in and out. So if I went against Yeah, these side decisions always get hard. So like if I went against like a control deck, what would I want to bring in? Probably three Change of Hearts. It'd be really hard to take out the power of the dark sides. Like what would the asteroid sanctuaries would probably come out versus control, and I would put in two or three Change of Hearts. It's probably the play there. Maybe a Greedo comes out. Like I could see you maybe only running two Greedos main because you're going to be two. You already got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, technically 12, 13. So I can see you cutting a Greedo main. Maybe putting in. Do you run the full main deck Bazines just for giggles? I don't think you have to. See, I don't. It's like I don't need the whole clutch of Greedos, but I don't know what I would put in instead. Um, all that talk, and I've just gone up to 13 cards on the sideboard. Haven't actually cut. Um, okay, so like let's take this another approach. A lot of the times with my sideboards, if I'm not super like meticulous on what I would do in a match, I'm just like, give me 5 cards for aggro and give me 5 cards for control. So like say control cards might be um, a Bazine, Change of Heart, and maybe we'll go with an Avenger. Does it make sense to like pop an Avenger in here for the control matchup? Maybe. Where is it? There it is, an Avenger. It's all the way at the end. So, and then we put it main, or put it in the sideboard. So let's say versus control, I want 3 Change of Hearts, I want my 3rd Bazine, and I want my Avenger. And then when I go against aggro, I could be like, give me 3, make an opening. That'd be it, and 2 Devotion. Not run Vigilance. Vigilance is so good against aggro, though. You know, maybe Devotion doesn't make the cut, and it ends up being like, yeah, there we go. Okay, let's just go with this. So my 5 control cards are I have my 3 Change of Hearts, an Avenger, and a Bazine. You know, I can go a little bit heavier, take your shit, you know, Bazine to pitch your hand. And then for the aggro matches, I bring in 3 making openings and 2 vigilance. Could be that the make of openings like switch out. Like if you're seeing a lot of green Sabine, it's not great there. So like maybe your making openings should be the devotions in that matchup. Just try to claw back health to get out of range of being for a cause. But I think that's good enough for now. All right. With that said, let's go ahead and name the deck. Something funny that I thought of earlier this week, looking at the picture, he reminds me of the movie Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, particularly the end where Jay is dressed up as Chronic from Blunt Man and Chronic with his cute little red booties. So with that said, I am naming the deck Chronic Cunning. Or maybe Cunning Chronic. I don't know. It's fine. Whatever. Let's go ahead and look at the deck image. Yeah, deck looks pretty good. I've been tweaking it and playing various versions of this deck over the past week, and I've really, really liked this deck. It's a lot of fun to play. I feel like you've got, some good matchups, in the meta against meta decks that you like. Like, I feel like it's pretty good into, like, Sabine, the Boba, young or old Han. I don't know if it's that good into, like, Kira. Everybody thinks they're good into Kira, and then they play Kira. Or, like, the slower control decks. But, like, those decks are supposed to be mid-range decks for the most part. But you do have some lines in those matches. Like, you might be able to get, like, a big Lurking Typhanum that can't answer and punch through. Something along those lines. You change a heart, finish them off. I would say, like, the one thing I did run into, the deck feels maybe a little fragile, or at least, like, you really have to learn your lines because it can be pretty punishing if you make a mistake. So, like, if you give it a few reps and it's not working, like, don't give up on the deck too early. Give give it a few more reps, figure out the lines, and I think you'll see it's a really good deck. Like, I think you'll start seeing this as like a fringe contender in the upcoming planetary qualifiers. With that said, thanks for tuning in this week, and I will catch you next time. Bye.